Hold out your hand.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my full Last of Us Season 2 Episode 4 video. There are a whole bunch of Easter eggs and references from the games, so we'll break it all down. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. The episode title was Day 1, a reference to the Last of Us 2 game. The title of Chapter 2 of the game is Seattle Day 1. Just like this episode, it was also the first day Ellie had inside the Seattle quarantine zone. The episode also explains a lot of Isaac's backstory too, and what happened to him starting on day 1 of him killing his patrol, defecting to their group, the Washington Liberation Front, and explain the circumstances of how he eventually wound up becoming one of their brutal leaders. He is meant to be one of the major antagonists in the second game, and we will see that play out through the events of Season 2. As you probably recognize, Jeffrey Wright is playing Isaac. He voiced the character in the game, so Neil Druckmann said it was a no-brainer bringing him back to actually do the character in live action. He has been in a ton of other HBO shows, so HBO probably jumped at the chance too, like, oh hell yeah, Jeffrey Wright. He's got that perfect voiceover style voice, like that liquid chocolate voice of God. He also voices the Watcher Uatu in the MCU, the Marvel Universe. They also said they really lucked out in that Jeffrey Wright's real-life age is perfect for the age that Isaac needs to be in the game right now and on the show. They've already done this many times during Season 1 and Season 2, like Merle Dandridge came back to do Marlene. She was the voice of the character in the game. Ashley Johnson, who voiced Ellie, came back as her mother in the flashbacks. Troy Baker, who voiced Joel in the game, also came as a cameo during Season 1. Lauren Bailey also cameoed during Season 1. She played Abby in the game. The way that Jeffrey Wright explains his motivation at the beginning of the episode when they show the flashback is that he turns on Fedra because he feels like Fedra has betrayed their original mission to protect the people of Seattle here and they become dictators. So doing this, he feels like he's helping the citizens. It's a moral decision on his part. But over time, they said they wanted it to seem like by present day, he and the WLF had gotten just as bad as Fedra, and it was because, in the minds of the writers and the producers, like the people that are actually making the show, that the true infection isn't the fungus, it's actually the sense of tribalism, the us versus them vibe, the destructive cycle of revenge. The Seraphites and the WLF have engaged in a long-running war for the last several years. That whole destructive cycle of revenge is meant to be a metaphor for the entire season, as well as Ellie and Abby's main storyline too, like the A story. The actual episode starts in that flashback in 2018 inside Seattle's quarantine zone where the WLF are located, but it's to Isaac when he was still Fedra. We see his patrol of soldiers going out just on a random day. One of his subordinates, played by Josh Peck, who you probably recognize, is telling a story about an adventure he had dealing with a group of Seraphites handing out pamphlets that he didn't really know that much about. Like, he didn't know they were Seraphites, but that's why he calls them religious zealots, because the Seraphites are religious zealots. But at this point, the WLF already exists. When he keeps referencing the name Greenberg, that might be a slight Easter egg for Alan Greenberg, who's the VP of marketing at Microsoft for all the Xbox stuff. Notice how Isaac is the only person in their patrol who's not enjoying the story because, like I said, he's grown very disdainful of the rest of his WLF co-workers here. He feels like they're all terrible people, so that's why he has absolutely no problems killing them.
Well, she didn't, you're thoughtless.
He's almost casual about it too, like he's already made up his mind a long time ago, and he's just finally going through the actions of actually doing it here. When they stop the convoy, this is all very clearly prearranged by Isaac, like Isaac led them down this street into the trap because he was working with Hanrahan, who is not a character from the game, they just created her for the show. They just implied that he'd been in contact with her and they'd planned for this to go down, they planned for him to turn on this day and kill his patrol in the action of this. I also love the touch of how sure he is of what he's doing, that he's not even bothered by the other subordinate who he saved by bringing him off the truck, like, you come with me, giving him an opportunity to actually turn sides with him. Later in the episode, we actually get the reveal that he's standing outside the door where Isaac is torturing the Seraphite, revealing what had happened to him after all this time too, like basically the way that Isaac had gotten very, very dark over time as well. During the intro, they continue to use the changed intro that we saw in last week's episode with only Ellie alone at the end, removing Joel after episode 2 because he died. Maybe at some point they'll change this, or maybe it will just be Ellie for the rest of the series, because it does kind of flow with a lot of the themes of the way the game winds up going. We don't have to get too far ahead about that though, it's still pretty early days right now. But then they pick back up in present day with Ellie and Dina looking through a medical storage room for meds inside Seattle. Her joking about the yeast infection, then finding the pregnancy test, multiple pregnancy tests, which she jokes about later, is to reference the baby that she's going to be having, Jesse's baby. Part of the idea is they said they wanted to use this storyline to show that both of the characters, Dina and Ellie, had secrets that they were keeping that they then revealed to each other by the end of the episode because of the circumstances. But this is the reason why Dina keeps getting sick in last week's episode and in this week's episode too. Even though there's a lot of gross stuff happening that would make you queasy if you're a queasy person, she's throwing up because she has morning sickness. You also might have noticed that the director of the episode in the opening credits was Kate Herron, the person who directed Loki Season 1. I was actually surprised because I didn't read the list of directors before we actually started getting the episodes. There's a lot of reference to them seeing rainbows for Pride, but Ellie doesn't understand what it means because she was basically a fungus baby. Like, she grew up after the apocalypse, after the fungal infection, so she didn't really experience this in pop culture the way that normal people would. When they spot the tank, the dead bodies all around it, both Fedra and WLF, is just meant to be a reference to the events of Isaac turning and then helping the WLF defeat the rest of Fedra in the city so that the WLF would gain control of the city. All their military gear and weapons comes from Fedra, essentially. You also probably noticed that Ellie is like a NASA expert now. The reason why she knows so much about NASA is because she and Joel traveled to the Wyoming Museum of Science and History, which we'll see eventually in flashbacks. Joel took her there a couple years earlier before this as a birthday present. It's one of the clever ways that the show is trying to keep Pedro Pascal's Joel on the show, even though they killed him off in present day. But at least for better or worse, they basically have wanted to pivot to making Ellie the actual main character of the show. We will see how that winds up going the rest of the season, like whether or not you think she actually does a good job of leading this show. As of me posting this video, I have not seen any of the future episodes yet.
If you paint a sign big enough to be seen from miles away, that means you want people to know that you're there.
They spot the WLF base in the distance, Ellie expecting to find Abby there, but Dina having to explain basic tactics to her and why it is a trap. Like, no, do not rush into the trap. Them holding up in the music shop is meant to be right out of the games in a reference to Joel's guitar, which she winds up playing the Aha Take On Me song that he taught her in the games. Zoom and enhance in the background, notice there's a Pearl Jam poster as she's walking up the stairs. The show has used multiple Pearl Jam songs this season and last season and in the games, mostly because Neil Druckmann says he's a Pearl Jam stan, so he just worked them into the games as much as possible. So when it came time to do the live action show, they're like, oh, we'll just use the Pearl Jam songs from the game. She sees all the guitars, she plays Take On Me, the song that Joel taught her, and part of the irony here in real life when they were making the show is that Bella Ramsey, the actress, had to teach Pedro Pascal, the actor who plays Joel, how to play guitar, so that inside the show, Joel could be the one to teach Ellie how to play guitar. My assumption is that we'll just get that moment in a flashback in some future episode because we have seen some trailer scenes of them with the guitar that we have not seen in episodes yet. Ironically, there's also a line in that song that goes, "It's better to be safe than sorry," which is a good metaphor for the way that Joel lived his life, in his life with Ellie, particularly during Season 1, the events of Season 1. Then they transition to Isaac in present day to show him interrogating a Seraphite, trying to find out about their battle tactics. They use this just to show you how cold and calculated he has become over the years, like much less moralistic, and basically been driven to become just as evil as the WLF were, just as bad as they were, because of this destructive cycle of revenge. Really love how twisted and smart his story about cooking for women to impress them was, where he eases into torturing them using the pots and pans that he was so obsessed with when he was younger. The strange benefits of the apocalypse. Also using his speech on the properties of copper to show you how smart he is and how much more of a threat that makes him. When they keep referencing the she watching over the Seraphite, like she will watch over me, and Jeffrey Wright making fun of him saying she's been watching you getting your ass kicked, they're referring to the prophet who's dead in present day. All the scars that he mentions are members of the Seraphites. When he says some of them don't believe the prophet is real, it's a callback to last week's episode when we saw the Seraphites that the WLF killed. The older man told the little girl that it was more of a metaphor and made it seem like he wasn't a true believer in the prophet.
Prophet isn't magic.
The Seraphites that they're looking to get live on a nearby island. We'll eventually see them. When they start going back and forth, you attacked us, so we attacked you, revenge on revenge on revenge, you can kind of see the metaphor here. They talked about it in last week's episode when they were trying to do the town hall in Jackson. This will all come back around when Ellie eventually is able to confront Abby. The Seraphite also implies that eventually they're going to win through a game of attrition because the WLF soldiers are slowly defecting and turning to their side. Eventually they will outnumber them. Ellie and Dina then discover a lot of the Seraphites' handiwork at the TV station with all of the dead WLF strung up. This is also meant to foreshadow the events of future episodes where this happens to main characters get strung up like this. Without getting too far ahead of the story, we'll talk about it when we get there, but eventually the main characters will have to deal with the Seraphites too, the way they're dealing with the WLF soldiers right now. They also want to use this to show you how hardcore the Seraphites are, like they're just as bad as the WLF. When they spot the Feel Her Love drawing in blood with the symbol, it's also right out of the games. All this stuff here too with the TV station is right out of the game. They try and fail to duck the group of WLF soldiers who discover the bodies, wind up fighting one of them, and then heading through chase through the tunnels in the factory here and wind up running into another horde. Out of the frying pan into the fire, like you escape one giant horde to run into another horde. This is like the people behind the show saying, you were complaining there weren't enough infected during season 1, we will give you more infected. How about a bunch of different hordes? All of the cinematography here during most of the episode, just in general, was amazing. Most HBO shows, especially the ones that they do mostly practical, like there was a lot of special effects, visual effects going on in the episode, but you can feel that they film a lot of this show practically. They kind of ran into this issue during House of the Dragon Season 1 where they used a lot of the volume to film a lot of Dragonstone scenes and a lot of dragon and flying scenes. They fixed that for Season 2 though, like you can kind of tell shows that use the volume a little bit too much. Like there are definitely a lot of shows out there that use volumes in really bad ways too, like Ahsoka Season 1 was particularly egregious when it came to that. Mini Horde winds up taking out the WLF patrol, fixing that problem for them, but then chases them down with them barely escaping, Ellie having to sacrifice her arm in order to save Dina from getting bitten. That was why she jutted her arm out in front of Dina so that it would get bitten before they bit Dina. This is also a really good example of how relentless the infected are. But the real big idea here is Dina watching this happen and thinking after this that she's going to have to shoot Ellie in the head because she thinks she's going to turn. When they run to the theater to hide out, it's called the Pinnacle. It's also right out of the video game. There's a minor change on the marquee here. On the show, it says The Sick Habit, which is a reference to a band in the game whose posters you see all over the place in the game. But in the game, the marquee reads Cassandra, which I think is meant to be a reference to the next Uncharted game where you play as Cassandra, Nathan Drake's daughter. Naughty Dog, who makes the Last of Us video games, also makes the Uncharted games. Tom Holland played Nathan Drake in the live-action Uncharted movie recently.
The characters are maybe a little bit charted because they're based on an incredibly popular video game franchise.
And they spend the entire night here with Dina watching Ellie to see if she'll turn. Like she has to promise her, like, I'll wake up and be fine. And she doesn't sleep a wink, just waiting to see if she budges at all. Really feel for Dina in this moment because they almost just got killed a couple different times in rapid succession. She hasn't slept in a long time and she is very, very pregnant. Which is also why after they get it on, she crashes hard for a while. Like boom, she is out like a light. And they basically use all these events, but they eventually wake up where she reveals to Ellie the truth that she is pregnant with Jesse's baby. And now they have this real weird threesome going on, even though technically she's not with Jesse anymore. The whole moment where Ellie says, I'm going to be a dad, is also meant to give you vibes that she feels like she's turning into Joel, like I'm turning into my father, Joel, because now she is the protective father. She will eventually start to feel as protective of Dina and her baby as Joel felt of her. So this has huge ramifications for her whole reason for being here in Seattle to get revenge on Abby for what she did killing Joel. There are a couple moments at the end of the episode here too in the teaser for next week's episode where Dina gives her some outs like, we could head back to Jackson. I'd be happy to go back with you. We could go back anytime you want. So the big idea for Ellie now is what does she value more? Does she value her revenge more or does she value her future that she potentially has with Dina in this baby? Eventually she's going to be forced to pick between the two of them. There's a couple funny moments here too after they both wake up where Dina basically has to explain a lot of feminine hygiene to her like pregnancy test because Ellie has been growing up in the apocalypse. She just hasn't gone through any of this before, so she hasn't learned any of this stuff yet. Just a really good example of how the apocalypse just affects somebody's development as they grow up. When they rush out onto the rooftop to look out over the city, it's meant to be a parallel for her and Joel doing something similar at the end of season 1 when they spotted the giraffes. Very different context for the scene though, where they're spotting the WLF base in the distance. This is also to show you where they're headed in next week's episode to try and find Abby, and Dina deciding to go with her despite being pregnant. Like, I'm with you all the way to the end, but we will see how far that winds up going. Generally, they just want to show that their bond, at least right now, is as strong, or it seems as strong, as her bond with Joel was during season 1. But it is going to get way, way worse for them in the next couple of episodes. There's a lot going on, so if there's any references or Easter eggs you think you spotted from the games that I didn't talk about during the video, just write them below in the comments. My episode 5 video will post next week after they release it. It seems like Dina is starting to give her more and more outs, excuses to turn back, to return to Jackson. They start referencing rats in the teaser for next week's episode too, which feels like a Rat King reference. Maybe they will try to do Rat King or some point during the season, but it looks like Ellie also spots some spores, which is a big deal because they took all the spores out of the first game during season 1. There were so many complaints about it, they said behind the scenes, that they brought them back for season 2. Like, okay, we'll finally do spores.
I'll go back if you want.
The reason why that's a big deal in the games is because everywhere the characters go to like a new area or inside a new building, they have to wear gas masks because spores are all over the place and can still infect people. Even though Ellie is technically immune, all the other regular characters can still be infected. So anytime they go into like a place they've never been before, they're usually wearing gas masks to protect themselves just in case. They said the reason why they didn't do spores during season 1 is because they didn't want people on the show to be walking around with gas masks covering their face all the time in scenes. So it's really just from a practical filming perspective. We will see how they invoke the spores in next week's episode. Not to be forgotten, we also had the Fantastic Four movie with Pedro Pascal coming up and The Mandalorian and Grogu, so it's like Pedro Pascal into the Pascalverse. There's a bunch of other big stuff coming up this week. We're in the middle of Thunderbolts rolling out, so I got a couple more videos that I'm working on for that, and Fantastic Four. Andor episodes 7, 8, and 9 will also be coming soon, so be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss my video for that. Everybody click here for all my Last of Us episodes, and click here for my Thunderbolts post-credit scene video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.